How you doing, kids? Today we're going to read The Greatest Goal by Mike Leonetti.
It was a warm Saturday morning in early September. The leaves were just starting to change color. Fall was right around the corner, and so was the start of the hockey season. Dad and I were playing ball hockey on the driveway just like we tried to do every day after he got home from work. Dad was in goal and I was taking shots. I imagined I was Paul Henderson of the Toronto Maple Leafs. I faked to the left and then unleashed my wrist shot. Goal. Dad had gone down early. Dad looked up and said, "Wow, Paul, that shot should get you some goals this season." My dad had taught me to skate. He had played in the league since he was a kid. Now I was in a league too. Next Saturday, he wouldn't be playing ball hockey in the driveway. We would be at the rink for my first game of the season. Today was special for another reason. The biggest hockey series of all time started tonight, Canada versus the Soviet Union. For the first time ever, the best Canadian NHL players would play against the best players from the Soviet Union in an 8-game series.
I took control of the ball again. Dad liked to imagine he was Ken Dryden of the Montreal Canadiens when he was in goal. I wheeled and unleashed a blistering slap shot. Save. Do you think Canada will win all 8 games, Dad? I don't know if we'll win all 8, Dad said, but with our players, we would win the series without too much trouble. I'm so excited. What a way to start the hockey season. I hope Paul Henderson has a great series, I said as I wove with the ball in front of the net. I never missed watching Henderson every Saturday night on Hockey Night in Canada. My friends admired players like Frank Mahovlich and Phil Esposito, but like Henderson, best because he skated real fast and scored lots of goals. Just this past season, he scored 38. My mom liked him because he always protected his head when he played, and she bought me a helmet just like his. He also had the same first name as me, Paul. Dad tried a poke check, but I pulled the ball back and beat him with a backhand shot. He scores.
That night, Dad and I were tucked in on the couch to watch the start of the Canada-Soviet series. The first game was in Montreal, and the fans gave the biggest cheer to the Montreal Canadian players on Team Canada as they were introduced. I watched closely as Paul Henderson skated out. The look on his face seemed to say he was ready to play. When the national anthem was played, the fans sang along loudly. Then, Prime Minister Trudeau dropped the puck, and finally we were ready to play hockey. When the game started, Phil Esposito scored after just 30 seconds of play. My dad and I let out a cheer, and before I knew it, Henderson scored to make it a quick 2-0 game. He snapped in a shot from the face-off so quickly the Russian goalie had no chance. "You're right, Dad. Our best are too good for them," I said.
But then things started to change quickly. The Russians got 2 fast goals to tie the score, and by the end of the second period, they were up 4-2. Bobby Clark got a goal back in the third, but the Canadians were looking tired. The Russian players were buzzing around, creating chances after chances. They scored 3 more times and won the game 7-3. The Soviet goalie, Vladislav Tretiak, was blocking more shots than anyone had ever imagined. He wore a strange mask that looked like a birdcage and had a great glove hand. My dad and I couldn't believe what had happened.
2 days later, the second game was played in Toronto. Could Team Canada come back to tie the series? I was excited about watching the game with Dad, but he couldn't be at home that night. He had been promoted in his job, and now he had to travel for work. It was hard to get used to him being away, especially for one of the biggest hockey games of all time. I watched the game on my own and saw Canada win 4-1. It was really close, and Team Canada had a slim 2-1 lead when they got a penalty in the third period. Then Peter Mahovlich scored an amazing shorthanded goal when he took the puck down the ice and fooled the Russian defenseman with a great fake before deking Tretiak out of position. The crowd at Maple Leaf Gardens went crazy. The Canadian players poured onto the ice to congratulate Mahovlich. "That's more like it," I said, but then I remembered that Dad wasn't there to hear me. The next day was the start of the school year, so I was up early for breakfast. I told Dad about the game the night before. "I sure missed watching it with you," I said. "I try to be with you whenever I can, Paul, but sometimes I need to get things done for my job. I'm just like the players on Team Canada. I try my best, but it doesn't always work out the way I would like. Can we watch the next game together? I hope so."
I love the start of school because it meant seeing all of my friends again after a long summer. This year, all we talked about was hockey. I was in grade 4, and my teacher, Mr. Gettigan, let me do my first class project on the series. I learned about Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg, and Vancouver, the cities where the 4 Canadian games are being played. I also learned that a lot of the Canadian players came from small towns like mine. Yvon Cornier was from Drummondville, Quebec. Henderson was born in Kincardine, Ontario. Bobby Clark grew up in Flin Flon, Manitoba. And Red Berenson was from Regina, Saskatchewan. Some other great players on the team were Sergei Savard, Guy Lapointe, Brad Park, Rod Gilbert, Jean Rattel, and brothers Phil and Tony Esposito. So many great NHL players from all over the country had come together to create one of the best teams ever.
The third game took place in Winnipeg. From the start, Dad and I were in position on the couch. Canada scored an early goal, but the Russians quickly tied it up. We got two more, and the Russians added a second. Then Henderson raced in to pick up the loose puck just over the blue line and slapped it past Chechyak to make it 4-2 Canada. But before the end of the second period, the Russians had scored another two and evened the score. Henderson had a great chance to win the game in the third period when he was right in front of the net. He put his arms in the air just for a second, thinking he had scored, but Chechyak made a spectacular save. The horn sounded, signaling the end of the game. The Soviets and Canada had tied 4-4. "Well, Paul," my dad said, "I guess you should never count on a game being won before it's over. Those Soviets are tough."
I was allowed to stay up a little later than usual to watch the fourth game, which was played in Vancouver. But Canada lost 5-3, and our team was booed by the crowd. After the game, Phil Esposito, one of the captains of the team, made a speech while he was being interviewed on television. "To the people across Canada, we're trying our best," he said. "Every one of us, we came out and played for Team Canada because we love our country and not for any other reason. I don't think it's fair that we should be booed." Mr. McGettigan had handed out postcards at school. Each one had a Canadian flag on the front with the words, "Go Canada." I thought what Esposito had said was really fantastic, so I decided to write my postcard to Paul Henderson to inspire him. "Good luck in the rest of the series. I hope you score some goals," was the message I wrote.
Dad was away for the week on a business trip. I miss having him home, especially since I was about to start to play in my league on Saturday. Mom took me to the game, and my baby sister Danielle came along as well. It was great having them in the stands watching me, but during the game my coach got upset at me because he said I didn't pass the puck enough. My dad had told me I would become a better player if I handled the puck more. I really tried to make good passes whenever I could, but I love to carry the puck up the ice and stick handle my way around the other team. I told my mom what had happened. She was very good about listening to me, but I still wish I could talk to Dad about this, because it was a hockey problem. He had a way of explaining things to me about the game. I was trying to play the way he taught me. The next few days went by slowly. Both the Canadian and the Soviet teams were traveling to Moscow for the 5th game of the series. We had to win the game, just had to.
Because of the time difference, the games in Moscow would be played in the afternoon. At school, all us kids were going crazy at the thought of missing Game 5. Suddenly, the principal, Mr. Leonetti, announced over the loudspeaker, "All staff and students report to the cafeteria. We have a game to watch." A huge cheer went up through the school. The game looked very different inside the Russian arena. The ice surface was much larger. There were 3,000 Canadian fans who had gone to Moscow, and you could hear them cheering. It must have helped because Team Canada jumped to a 3-1 lead. Henderson scored one of the goals. Then in the third period, he used his blazing speed to break away from everyone on the ice. He moved in on the Russian net and fired a hot shot past Chechyak. But then the Soviets scored 4 goals in 6 minutes to win the game 5-4. It couldn't possibly get any worse. Canada was about to lose the whole series. All the Soviets needed was one more win.
Later that day, I had hockey practice. Mom picked me up when it was over because Dad was still at work. She could see that I was sad. "It's not so bad, Paul," Mom said. "There's a chance Team Canada can come back and win." "I don't think so, Mom," I said quietly. "They'd have to win 3 games in a row, and all the Soviets have to do is win 1. Now, Paul, don't lose your hope," Mom tried to reassure me. "Is Dad going to be home tonight?" I asked. "He's working late, but he should be home before bedtime. It's really busy at work right now," she said. "I know. I just wanted to talk to him. That's all." I could tell Mom wanted to talk some more, But I was so sad. All I could do was shrug and look away.
Then, just when it looked like things would never improve for Canada, everything started to change. The sixth game was played on a Sunday afternoon. Dad was working in his study, but he promised he would come out into the living room and check on the score. Team Canada just had to win, and they did with a 3-2 victory. Best of all, Henderson scored the winning goal. The seventh game was even more exciting. Mr. McGettigan brought a television into our classroom for the third period. The score was tied 3-3 with just over 2 minutes left to play when my hero Henderson came through again. He took a pass from Serge Savard just over the center ice and broke in on two Soviet defensemen. He somehow managed to get by both of them, and then, just as he was falling, snapped a shot over Tretiak's shoulder. It was one of the best goals I'd ever seen. Canada had won the game 4-3 and even the series. It was all down to the final game. After the bell rang at the end of the day, my friends and I played ball hockey in the schoolyard. We all pretended to be Canadian players. Team Canada suddenly had a chance to win the series. I thought how happy my dad would be if we won. It was too bad we couldn't watch the game together. Dad would be at work and I would be at school.
On Thursday, Mr. McGettigan brought a television into our classroom for the final game. It started badly for Canada, and the Soviets finished the second period with a 5-3 lead. It looked like all of Team Canada efforts would be wasted. Just then, Principal Melody announced that we could watch the end of the game at home if we wanted to. It was fun being with all my friends, but there was nothing like watching hockey in my very own house, especially since we had just bought a color TV. I bolted for the door and ran all the way home. When I rushed into the house, I found Mom and Danielle in front of the TV, and I could hardly believe it. Dad was there too. He had left work early to watch the big game. "Hey there, what are you doing at home?" Dad asked with a big smile. "Jump up here on the couch." The third period was just beginning. Phil Esposito, who was playing with a great heart and determination, scored early to make it 5-4. Before I knew it, Cornier scored to make it 5-5, and we all let out a scream. There will still be 7 minutes left to play. This should be an exciting finish, Dad said.
Both teams were playing very cautiously, not wanting to make a mistake. It was so tense, but the players were tired, and the game was quickly coming to an end. There would be no overtime. It looked like the whole series would end in a tie. I could barely sit still. Then, in the final minute, Henderson came darting across the ice. We all began cheering, "Go, Henderson, go!" Suddenly, my hero was in front of the Soviet net. Esposito walked a shot off the goalie. The puck came right to Henderson. He swatted at the net, but Tretiak stopped the shot. The rebound came back to Henderson, and he put the puck right into the net. The announcer yelled out, "Henderson has scored for Canada!" Dad and I jumped and hugged, screaming, "We scored! We scored!" Team Canada was up 6-5 with only 34 seconds left to play. Canada was going to win the greatest hockey series ever played. As soon as the game was over, Dad, Mom, Danielle, and I went outside to join our neighbors on the street. Everyone was out celebrating. Dad put me on his shoulders so that I could see what was going on. Someone was playing "Oh Canada" on a trumpet, and kids were running up and down the street with a big Canadian flag. We were all so happy.
Saturday morning I woke up early and found Dad ready and waiting to take me to my hockey game. In the car I asked him, "Dad, you say stick handling is important, but the coach keeps telling me to pass to the open man." "We're both right, Paul. It's important to have good puck skills, but hockey is a team sport, and the open man has the best chance. Besides, you'll be surprised how often you get the puck back when you pass it." I could hear Dad encouraging my team during the game. Then I broke up a play and passed the puck to our winger as he broke down the ice. I took off after him. He hammered a hard shot as he crossed the blue line. The goalie made the save, but the rebound came straight to me and I fired it home. "Goal!" My dad cheered from the stands. As we walked back to the car afterwards, we talked about how I played just like we always did. Dad patted me on the shoulder and said, "You know, Paul, watching that final game together reminded me of how much fun we have because of hockey." "Of course, Dad," I said, "but I know you have to work too." "Work is important, Paul, but so are you. Danielle and your mom and I don't want to miss any of your hockey games." He faked to the left and took an imaginary shot. "You think you'd score next Saturday?" I just smiled. I knew I would never forget that I was with my biggest hero, my dad, the day that my hockey hero, Paul Henderson, scored the greatest goal.